like to welcome everybody back to Living a Good Life. We're here in the TGM studios in the Entertainment District in Prescott Valley. I'm here with Skyler Reeves, restaurateur, master of restaurant design and creation. Skyler has graciously joined us today just to talk about some things. And you know, Skyler, today I want to talk to you about site selection from your world. Cool. I want to talk to you about you have a lot of concepts. You're a fairly large employer for our region. I want to talk to you about issues as an employer you face on a daily or monthly basis. Might even want to touch about issues your employees are facing. Yeah. Because those affect you directly. Yep. And then we might even touch on what brought you here, because I know you had experiences in other cities and other communities, and what brought you to our region. Sure. Yeah. So, you know, with that, I mean, when I met you, you were working at a bar, and that wasn't all that long ago. Nope. Right? And then shortly thereafter, you opened Barley Hound. Yep. Then you acquired Roses. Yep. You created La Planchada, and you created County Seat. Yep. And now you have Taco Don's. Yep. 5 concepts. What goes into your site selection for where you put a restaurant? I mean, you're kind of heavily, you know, as somebody who likes to dine out, it's great. You got a bunch of restaurants in downtown Prescott. I can walk to all of them. Yep. But what makes you do that cluster versus being spread all over a community? How do you go into choosing a site? Sure. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here, and exciting to have Roses here in Prescott Valley, you know, which we're sitting not too far away from. So the site selection, I like that question a lot. I think beginning restaurateurs often get it wrong. In that they become real romantic about an idea for a restaurant, and then they get it stuck in their head. I'm going to open a pizza restaurant. I want to make pizza. My grandmother taught me how to make pizza. It's all about pizza. I want to do this. And then they get real emotional about that and go out and try and find a space for that pizza restaurant. Now, that'd be fine if we lived in a vacuum and you didn't have kids or a spouse or a community you lived in or a house that you lived in, and so you can't just widen your search to the entire world. So you're going to be looking in a relatively small geographical area and you've already pigeonholed yourself to pizza, let's say, for example. Okay. So then you go around and looking, and it's 2,000 feet, 4,000 feet, 6,000 feet, and you're gonna you know, when you fool yourself into making the right decision, when you know deep down it's not the right decision, because it's like the first sports car I bought. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be buying this car, but I'm still going to do it because I'm 20, you know? And so I know that happens to a lot of people, particularly for their first restaurant, whether they're new in the restaurant game or they've been a manager for a long time and they just really have this idea for this certain type of restaurant, and they go out trying to jam this square peg in a round hole. So I look for the space first, right? Okay. So I go out and I might have an idea, hey, I want to do something in Prescott Valley. And then I go start looking for the space, see who the landlord is, what the situation is with the landlord, see if there's an existing tenant. I look at all of that. Then I start to conceptualize what might go in that space. Okay? Okay. Then I look at sort of your normal business school 101. Who are my competitors? What are the price points? What other offerings are around? So let's say for this Rosa's we're sitting down the block from, it was perfect for a Rosa's, and I wanted it to work so bad, but there's another family Italian directly across the street from it. I don't want to do that, probably because I don't think it's cool to the other person, and it depends. Although, you know, all's fair in love and war. If they're suffering and I feel like I can go in there and beat them at their own game, then maybe I would. Mm-hmm. So then I start simultaneously. I'm looking at the community around it. What are their offerings, and if I think it would be successful based on. And to use this case, like I didn't think there was a ton of Italian around. There's some other pizza offerings, but I think pizza is the most popular food in the world, and you can never have too much pizza, right? Okay. And so in that case, it kind of worked. So it's kind of a long, weird answer, but I really think people get it the wrong way in that they become romantic about this particular idea for the offerings the restaurant's going to have.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So when you say it, it's, I want to open a pizza shop, and then I go look for that, and I go to La Planchada because it's just a unique offering that you brought to the region. So you saw that space.
Yep.
And then you started to visualize the concept behind it and started to create it, which I think is totally opposite of what most people think.
100, exactly.
And I think the reason why is we know the national chains. Right. So when a Chili's or one of the big chains comes in, they know what they are.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a site to put their restaurant. So what makes
and they have a ton of money.
But what makes you different than them as far as site selection?
Okay. I'm creative, and I can be creative.
Okay.
And so there's no rules. I have no rules for myself.
Okay.
Chili's, Texas Roadhouse has a very specific set of rules. It's got to have this many parking spaces. It's got to have a visibility from a road that has X amount of thousands of cars per day. Okay. They have this set of criteria. To me, you show me a alley with a basement and a set of stairs and something that everyone in business school 101 would say, don't do it. I'll be like, hey, Brad, I want really cheap rent, and I'm going to make this work because I have a great idea for a concept to make this work. So I think the difference for them, I still will look at look, I'm not going to lie, I don't look at the demographics like a Chili's would. Like, I don't know exactly the median household income. I don't know the exact number of people that reside. But I know Prescott really well. I know Prescott Valley really well. I live here. It's a little different. If I was saying going to go select 5 sites across the state for 5 new Rosas, then I'd honestly bring someone in that is good at those demo studies and stuff like that. So I guess to distill it down to the essence, I really know the market, and if I don't, I find a subject matter expert in that market.
Okay. So for you, it starts more, your creativity starts with, where do you want to have your next restaurant?
Yep.
I want to be in Prescott Valley, or I want to be maybe Chino, or maybe you want to go over to Cottonwood.
Yep.
And then you find a site, and then you start figuring out, like, what's the vibe of the community? What are they maybe missing? Yep. What does the site say to you?
Yeah, you got it. And sometimes those things come to me.
Yeah.
Now, so maybe I'm not thinking about Cottonwood,
okay,
but I get a cold call and someone's like, hey man, I got a great opportunity. This tenant did a midnight run. You can step in and get all the equipment for free, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay, wasn't thinking about Cottonwood, but let me scoot down there today and look at that spot.
Okay. But then it's the same process from there.
But then from there, it's the same process. So what are the ups and what are the downs? People also don't understand, the restaurant business has a ton of specific site requirements, like a grease trap, like ventilation to the up top out for a hood, dumpster, how close the trash is, visibility of the street, and parking. Visibility and parking would be the same with retail or anything else, but if I was going to open a retail shop to sell candles, you don't have to worry about the grease trap, ventilation. Health department is their cove-based tile in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff costs money, a lot of money. Yeah. So then the site selection right away is hood, grease trap. First 2 questions before I even look at the space. Is there a hood? How long is it? Because then right away I get a feeling for how much equipment's going to fit under there.
Okay.
Right? So I got shown a space last week, 2 weeks ago. They said, oh, there's a huge outdoor area. You could put hundreds of people there. And my question is, how long is the hood? They said 8 feet. And so I'm like, what are you going to cook in the span of 8 feet that's going to feed several hundred people? Like the deal's dead right away in that case. I shouldn't say dead, but you'd have to get real creative with it. Like, what do you know?
There's only so much food you can pull off an 8-foot hood.
Yep. So then you think maybe you could get creative and do like a food truck or salads or something that doesn't require a hood, or but then you're kind of going back to square peg round hole thing. Like, do I want this too bad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To where you're going to make a poor decision. I bring the car thing into example too, because I love cars. I've owned a lot of cars, and it's like, I want it so bad, I don't need to take it to the mechanic. It's probably fine. You know what I mean?
Well, it goes back to that. Chasing the restaurant, chasing your dream, versus studying to have a successful operation that is called a restaurant.
It's a restaurant business.
Yeah.
You got to be good at both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of business, 5 restaurant concepts. You got to have a few employees to run restaurants.
Yep.
I don't know how many employees you have, but you're a larger employer for our region.
Yeah.
Especially in the private sector. What are some of your challenges as an employer managing all that you face today?
Sure. Well, so last week we had 150 active employees, plus a handful of other people we manage. So, that was, like I said, when I met you, I had 0. and 4 years ago, I had 30 or something, maybe. So it's been a big change. The biggest, it's no shock or news to say, oh, there's a shortage of people or no one wants to work. I try not to say that out loud too much, even though I feel that some way, because we've got 150 people working for us. 80, a lot of them, most of them work very, very hard. Our core group of managers, about 25 people, work extremely hard, work on the weekends, work at night, answer emails at 6 a.m. So there's a lot of good out there in the workforce. The challenge that we're seeing is here in particular, it's a kind of a young person's game, the restaurant business. We of course don't discriminate on age or anything, but you're on your feet a lot. The kitchen jobs are tough. Talk about lift 50 pounds repeatedly. These guys are stocking thousands of pounds of food every day, every other day. So there's demographically a lack of young people here in Prescott. I think that's a challenge for us. And then this competing for wages that seems to be cooling off a little bit.
Okay.
Of the guy across the street offering 50 cents and the guy across the street from there offering another 50 cents. So we try and lead with our culture. We try and we have a referral bonus program that's been really good. So if you refer someone to one of our restaurants then to work, then you get paid. So that kind of speaks to the culture. It's like, hey, you're my roommate. Hey, you should come work for this company. It's fun to work here. Here's some of the benefits, right? So, but it is super challenging.
How much does that play into? Because I've seen you've advertised payment of college education or reimbursement so that your job offering isn't a final step for folks. It can be a growth step. Like they can come in and work and make an honest living and also work towards something they might want. Bigger in life. You talked about culture, your culture being fun to work for. And I know we as a company, we're always trying to think of like, how do we attract and retain the best people? What is it because you can't always compete on wages. As you said, 50 cents, somebody leaves, and then you got to retrain somebody, and that's really expensive. So it's far cheaper to keep them. So I'm just curious how you feel that component of the offer you make outside, put wages over here, the benefits, the creativity around that plays into your offering.
I'd like to think it plays in a big way. We're not perfect. Our culture is not perfect. It drives me nuts when I see some CEO or on business news, saying our culture is it's always the owners that is saying how great their own culture is. You know what I mean? Where I try and gauge that all the time. Are people having fun? Is it fun to work here? Is that manager too hard on people? Is that manager too easy on people? We try to hire slow, fire fast. So if someone's not a fit, we try and get them out right away. That helps with the other folks. The college tuition is great. People really think that's cool. I wish more people were participating in it because selfishly it locks them in for 2 or 4 years, right? They're not going to leave. So selfishly that's for me. But then also to me, I feel really good about helping this person go through college. It's awesome. You know what I mean? It's a cool side effect of, to me, having the number of payroll checks I sign outweighs my revenue from 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm still really proud of that. And so we do other things like we close the day after 4th of July. So that was a new one last year that was very popular. And so it's tough because, as you know, it's our peak season. It's the end of that whole rodeo week where everyone just gets their butts kicked at work all day long. And so last year we did it the first time part of it was to avoid a Christmas party. And I said, this is our Christmas in July.
Okay.
And we close every single restaurant and everyone takes the day completely off. Everyone's forbidden to work. I hire a different company to throw a party for us. We did this big picnic. So that was like a huge hit. And so we're trying to find more things like that. Can't always be closing the restaurants. And then I try to give things like good equipment. When a cooler breaks, we try and replace it right away. We've all worked in restaurants where you had to deal with, icing. I'll skip the details, but
fully functioning equipment.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And that's a real pain in the butt. If you're an hourly employee or you're just a server trying to make your money and go back home and go study for college, where for an extra 30 minutes you got to cut lemons with a dull knife.
Yeah. Not fun.
Yeah. So we try and add all of those things because we're all paying about the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not a restaurant that's paying $45 an hour for cooks, maybe, that's in Northern Arizona.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like we're all like, and I think a lot of those guys and girls, they moved around a lot over the last year and they kind of, if someone's chasing that 50 cents, they're probably not a good employee to me.
Sure.
You want someone that wants to build something.
Well, you said something there that I couldn't agree with more, and you alluded to it, is, if somebody does invest the 2 to 4 years with you and they get a college associate's degree or something and they move on, when people move on from our company onto something bigger and better, it's a celebration.
Yeah. What could be bigger or better than your company?
Hopefully they provided us great value while they were here and helped us accomplish our objectives, and we helped them gain experience so they could move on to the next level of their life.
Yeah.
I truly feel like people are like, well, what if they leave? I'm like, well, that'd be a great thing.
Yeah.
In one sense, right? If they leave for the right reasons, because they're moving up.
Yep.
And I really think that's what's so great about business, right? We're about helping people and moving up rather than a handout. There's an exchange that takes place there.
Yes.
So now I want to put you on the spot.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you look in and always testing your culture with your employees, making sure it's going well. So when you look in, what are the challenges your employees are facing? When you're looking at those folks that are making it happen every day for you, what are their struggles?
Within the company or
within the community.
Community.
Like you're an employer here and you're looking at your employees, and my employees are struggling with
places to live.
Places to live.
That's it. I almost rented a group of apartments from under my name to put people in them. And I just decided it's too close to home. It's too much entanglement, with the employee. The reason I say that is, I had a guy, he was offering 6 months rent. He had some dings on his credit, and he had been working very hard. He was living with a family member. He had saved a lot of money up, and he was offering 6 months cash up front to get into these places, and he was just getting turned down left and right.
Wow. So is it availability? Is it attainability? Like they just can't afford the rent that's being charged? Quality of home?
I don't know. Probably all of those things. I think that there's places out there to be found, but I think you got to be really aggressive. And again, this, in this guy's case, he worked from, 9 or 10 in the morning until 8 or 9 at night every day, or 5 days a week. And so it's tough to find a place when you're, you know what I mean? And so I've encouraged people all the time, hey, I got to go look at an apartment. Yeah, go get it. Bring your down payment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the number one thing is the availability, though, and the affordability. So it's, I've seen the comment on the social media. Well, you should just pay them more then. Like I have this endless supply of cash.
Well, then you got to charge me more for dinner, right? And more for a drink. And it's a vicious circle.
I am in the center of the inflation situation. I am the guy. I'm right, meaning I see the food coming in more. I see there's less drivers, so the food delivery is harder to get. And then you see the gas go up, so you see a bigger surcharge. Yeah. So then I see me having to raise menu prices, and then I see the costs of the employees driving up that are in the same situation. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So in housing, I don't know as much about housing, of course, and I live in my house. I don't really follow what rents are or anything else. Mm-hmm. But I just hear this through my employees and friends of, it's hard to afford a $2,000 a month apartment, especially if you've got a kid or two kids, or if you have a pregnant wife, or someone who can't work at home too.
Yeah. Well, and if you think of it, if it's $2,000 a month rent, most people, if they're dotting the I's and crossing the T's on their future, they don't want to spend more than 30% of their income. So you're looking at somebody who's got to be making at least $6,000 a month
net. Really?
Net.
Really?
To be able, net, exactly.
Right, so that's more like, let's call it $7,200 a month.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's a lot.
It's a $90K job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, so we're talking, right now, you got to be making $90,000 a year. So if all your staff made $90,000 or more, how much would a dinner cost me? I mean, that's where it boils down to, right?
I would be in Mexico somewhere because I wouldn't have any money.
I don't think I'd be going out to dinner, right?
No. I mean, no, you can't.
But that's the reality, that I don't know if it's always connected to everybody in the community. Like this is a circle, and it's vicious, right? If we raise the minimum wage, then you hit inflation, so food costs and everything goes up, then you've got to raise the price of your meals.
Absolutely.
And then I got to pay more.
Yep. Right. It's similar. And the nuance that is always lost in this conversation that drives me nuts. Again, if you're watching the business news, or I can't think of that, CNBC or some one of these business, is that in these little 3-5 minute sound bites, the nuance that lost in minimum wage, good or bad. I think good. I think bad. It's like there's some nuance there, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm paying 15-year-old high school sophomore a minimum wage of $15 or $16 an hour to scoop ice cream 4 hours a weekend, that doesn't seem right to me. That's like the intent of the law is not doing its job. The intent was to stop a big bad employer from paying slave labor, from paying $1 a day to someone, right?
Yep.
That's never going to happen again. I think if you said, hey, all of a sudden there's no minimum wage, no employer is going to be able to just all of a sudden cut their wages in half, because you have this same competitive market, right? So if I said, great, no minimum wage, everyone makes $5 an hour, you think I'm going to have any employees left?
No.
The next day,
somebody's going to pay more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so you let the free market kind of take care of that. So in a now I'm really reaching here. If you're in Asia, children sewing clothing, again, I don't know nearly enough to be talking about this, but like the idea of having some regulation there is important.
Well, I think America has gotten spoiled, because we've benefited over a great country that was built on capitalism. So as a country, we've done very well, and I think we have the best standard of living as a country in the world. And yet we're the hardest on ourselves. We're really hard on ourselves. But we've gotten used to cheap products, and those products come from other countries.
Yeah,
they're made in other countries. They may have been thought of in the United States. I'm going to make clothing, but I'm not going to actually make the clothing here. I'm going to go to all these iPhones. I mean, they come from. Let's be honest. A lot of stuff comes from China, and we get used to that really cheap labor that's making it, and then it gets shipped over here. But then yet we want high wages over here, and there's a lack of understanding.
Factories with nets on them to stop people from jumping off the top.
Yeah,
that is a fact.
Yeah.
So the point. So trying to rein it home to a restaurant in Prescott, Arizona, the nuance has been lost in that high school kid to get their first job, where which was exactly what I had. They should be paid fairly, but it's not part of this conversation. And then of the overall wages of everyone should make $80K a year to afford a $2,000 a month apartment. That doesn't apply to everyone. Or the college kid who wants to wait tables at night. I mean, that's what I did. Wait tables 3 or 4 nights a week. Go to college 5 days a week. Maybe take a small amount of debt and get through to get going in life. Right.
It's the way it's done.
Right.
My son right now is parking cars in for a hotel
Yeah.
and going to school part-time.
Yeah.
Because it works for them.
Right. So
And
the job parking cars probably, quote, I'd probably get in trouble for this, but shouldn't pay this, quote, living wage of $80K a year. It's insane. You could, that's insane. Now, it's like people, let's look at, if you look at a giant bank, okay, huge, like one of the 3 or 4 biggest banks. It's funny how that disparity of income doesn't come up, where you have a CEO makes $400 million a year and the bank teller makes $15 an hour. My busboy, my beginning high school student is going to make $15 an hour as well. And it's in a very small business. So my point is, I don't have the solution, but it's the nuance of that conversation that's often missed.
Absolutely. And I think your last example is different businesses run on different business models.
Yeah.
I have a friend who owns fast food chain, and their margins are so tight.
Yeah.
And then there's other businesses that have big margins.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of mush them all together.
Yep.
And then we say we got to make a fair situation for everybody.
Right.
But affordability, housing, big challenge for your employees.
That's the number one complaint that I hear. I've moved several people here from other markets, and that's always the first hurdle. How can we work on this hurdle together? Do you have a family member you can live with for a while? Can I help you look at some places? Can I point you in the right direction? That's always the toughest place. Whereas, if you move in, there's lots of other places where you can just find the closest apartment and you sign up. There's a couple open, and
so that's a competitive disadvantage for our region. If we were in Phoenix or another major metropolitan area, there's just more offers for housing.
And it's cheaper.
A
lot cheaper.
So let's wrap up with our community's growing, our region's growing. A lot of people from out of state, different states. I know you came from out of state. You had a lot of experiences in other big cities.
Yep.
What brought you to Prescott?
Yeah, so I grew up in a teeny tiny town in Michigan. I moved around quite a bit. Most of my family lives in Southern California, so I lived there for about 10 years. And when I was there, my parents retired here to Prescott. So my dad found Prescott on a motorcycle ride, rode through town, rode up through the Dells, stopped, turned around, came back down, stayed a night at the Hacienda, and called my mom and said, "Hey, I think I found the spot." And
wow.
Yeah, and he bought a little condo out by the airport.
Okay.
And they kind of used it as a second home, or they would come here for a month or two at a time, and one thing led to another, and then I was living in LA, visiting here, and kind of all just came together, So I'm really, really glad it did. I absolutely love living here.
Good. Follow the family.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Skyler, I want to thank you for your time and sharing a few minutes with us on living a good life. That's what we're all trying to do, and chase down a good life for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.